Coming up on Tekzilla, get that classic console or your old VCR running with your new HD TV. Inside the Xbox 360 Slim with it on Shimpy, one app to rule them all. Veronica's got the ultimate social app and the horror of electronic license plates. And of course, a stack of your viewer questions, so duck on over to the craft service table and nom nom nom, because Tekzilla starts now. This episode of Tekzilla is made possible by GoToMeeting, Squarespace, Magic: The Gathering, Duels of the Planeswalkers. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
Welcome to Tekzilla, hands-on reviews of the latest tech and how to make the most out of the gear you've already got.
Whether you're a beginner or tech support for your friends and family, if you've got a question about tech or the most delightful flight between SFO to LAX, we've got an answer for you.
And if we don't, we'll track down someone who does. I gotta say, before we start, Veronica has actually been outside. She just does not tan very well.
I look so pale compared to you today. I don't know why.
You probably use a lot more sunblock than I do.
I use a lot of sunblock.
Yeah, see, I'm still finally easing out of that whole 70s. I started, I'm wearing hats, but I'm still kind of darkening up.
I'm like SPF 20 or 30 every day.
Every day.
Yeah, not necessarily on my arms
or
legs
50,
or anything, but on my face.
You'll look all fabulous. When I'm 50, I'll look like a lizard from Baja. Did you hear Dell is in talks with Google about the Chrome OS of all things? Could the days of bloatware be over? Or more likely, could the days of being really ticked off by Microsoft's restrictions on, well, I don't want to even get on a whole nother stupid XP restrictions on memory supplies on netbooks, but here's the quote. Dell reps said, there are going to be unique innovations coming up in the marketplace in 2-3 years with a new form of computing. It's called the iPad. We want to be on that forefront, so with Chrome or Android or anything like that, we want to be one of the leaders. No firm announcements between Dell and Google, but talks are underway. Google has said it expects to release its Chrome computer operating system in the late fall as it aims a competitive strike at rivals Microsoft, the rival, the other guys,
at Microsoft.
Windows.
This is going to be really huge for them because if Dell is shipping hundreds of thousands of computers with the Chrome OS on them, it could be definitely a formidable foe against Windows.
At this point, I just want to see if anybody actually adopts the Chrome OS.
Well, it's very bare bones,
right.
But I like that because there isn't going to be all that crapware that comes pre-installed on your computer. All you're going to get is a gateway to the internet, a nice browser, and some basic file browsing.
So you're saying you no longer have the iPad lust, you're going to dust off your HP Mini, fire it up with the Chrome OS, and carry that around?
Well, I don't know, because Jolly Cloud also announced this week that they're adding touch capabilities to the Jolly Cloud OS.
Really?
Yeah, so that could also be another competitor to Chrome and also Windows.
And you'll be keeping the world's economic engines turning because you'll have to buy a touch book.
Yeah, some kind of touch Android device.
So you can...
Or touch Android device or Jolly Cloud device. There's so many options. Chrome OS. I thought they were really going to kind of bastardize Chrome OS now that Android has hit it so big. So I'm glad that they've got a big deal like this in the works for Chrome.
What if, well, you know what, why don't we hold our speculation until we can get our happy little paws on the new OS?
One thing I read this week that is really freaking me out, apparently in California, license plates might go electronic. That's right, ads on your license plates. As if we didn't have enough distractions driving around on the highway and people talking on their cell phones. Yeah, the California legislature is considering a bill that would allow the state to begin researching the use of electronic license plates for vehicles. The move is intended as a moneymaker for a state facing a $19 billion deficit.
That would be our state.
That would be our state. At least one company, San Francisco-based SmartPlate, is developing a digital electronic license plate that has not yet reached the production stage. So it's not going to be like a big giant billboard, but you'll be able to support the brands that you care about on your license plate.
So you can have like a Google license plate or 49ers license plate.
Yeah, that's not too bad. What I still want
license plate.
is some kind of soundboard, like an LED soundboard on the back of my car.
Bite
so I can,
me! You don't even have a car in the back of your car.
Well, if I had one, that's what I would do.
Get a license for your backpack.
So I can say, watch it, buddy.
Back off, man.
Flipping lanes here, man.
3.7 billion phishing emails sent in the past year. You may not be getting phished, but people are still getting phished in large volume. Steve Furnell is a senior IEEE member, head of the Center for Security, Communications, and Network Research at the University of Plymouth, said, quote, the increasing skill of the fraudsters and other online attackers is effectively raising the bar for what the average user needs to know in order to remain protected.
Yeah, it's crazy because we used to just recommend that people make sure that all their virus registries are updated in their antivirus
Go to the original
software.
website. Never click on a link, send an email.
Make sure that it's got, you're actually on the website and you're not replying to messages or that kind of thing. But people are still doing it, and they're actually finding ways to block spyware from updating to the most recent version.
There's some crazy. I had a friend's computer that got infested because somebody downloaded some stuff. That
I like how it's not infected; it's infested.
It was infested.
Multiple malware.
There's an analogy I could use, but this is like a G-rated show, so I can't use that analogy. Let's just say bad, smoking hole where all the goodness should have been. But it was amazing because they actually blocked every single application from uploading. It installed fake versions of antivirus programs under brand names that were pretending to be real antivirus programs. Part of me was like, this is the most amazing feat. Look at the engineering and the time that went into this.
It's incredible, really.
And the other part of me was like, hunting party. Come on, let's get some heads on the wall.
Well, let's get to the first email of the day, and it comes to us from Stephanie. She writes in, I'm finally upgrading to either an LCD or plasma, but I found very few accept RCA connections. Even my new home theater didn't have these connections. I still love to play my older systems like my PS1, my PS2, my GameCube. So, is there a device that will interface between RCA and HDMI, and do you think 120 Hz LCD is sufficient for gaming? I've heard these can be muddy, and I have to stick to my budget. I'd like at least a 46-inch TV.
Oh boy. Personally, I think console gaming looks great on 60 hertz, 120 hertz, and 200 hertz, 280, 240 hertz. I work on a show. We talk nothing but HDTV and home theater,
That's
and
true.
I can't say hertz
That's
apparently.
Okay. Yeah, because 120 sometimes people say there's issues with high action sequences that they get a little bit blurred.
I personally have not seen it.
You've not seen it?
But I would think it would almost be a bigger issue with PC gaming, with console gaming. But if you've seen it, email us in, especially if you can get us a picture. I think 60, 120, or 240 hertz could look great. 240 hertz by the end of this year is going to be as cheap as 120 hertz. They're pushing it across all the models. And by the way, if you're really on a budget, check Costco and check Amazon.com. Amazon.com has free shipping and a pretty decent return policy, so it's a really great way to get a really good deal on an HD TV. Now, what's going on with getting composite video, analog video into the HDMI port?
All right, so it sounds easy enough. You take the composite video from that single yellow RCA jack or the S-video port on the back of your old console. You bundle it with the audio off the red and the white jacks and convert it into HDMI video that your new HD TV can use. The problem is that you're literally capturing, digitizing, and encoding that analog video and the audio on the fly, and we haven't seen a really cheap way to do it, unfortunately. Okay, well, we have seen like $100 no-brand boxes on hdtvsupply.com and some other places on the web. Keep an eye on the customer ratings and reviews to avoid the real stinkers, because they're definitely going to be out there.
Yeah, if like 279 people have given it like a 2.
Not good.
Not good.
Not good.
Yeah. At
like $225, the Geffen TV composite to HDMI scaler isn't cheap, but Geffen makes some of the best video gear in the world, and it should do a solid job upscaling your standard def video into 1080p. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to look like BAM HD, but it's going to look pretty decent.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. There's a weird part of me that almost thinks like the more primitive the graphics, the better the awful. Because you're basically you're doing a huge increase in size, and you're going to end up with artifacts. But it's almost like Asteroids looks better upscaled at 1080p than say something more recent. I may be on drugs. If you really want to go over the top, check out Anchor Bay's DVDO Edge. It's an HD video processor. It handles all your video inputs. $500 gets you 5 HDMI inputs, 2 component video inputs, composite S-video, coax, several optical audio ports, and it's just absolutely gorgeous top-of-the-line video scaling. It's also a really great way to add tons of ports to older HD TVs you're not ready to get rid of. It's got the Robert Heron seal of approval. It is a fantastic device for scaling all of your devices into a single box. Works with all of your favorite remote controls. It's a really slick way to do it. What about a cheap way of doing it, though?
A cheap way, that's very important. If you've already got a home theater PC attached to your HD TV, you could install a cheap capture card in it and use a preview mode to watch your favorite old video games and to play them. And that should do something, right?
Yeah, I've actually done that, where I've actually used like a home theater, like an analog video into a home theater capture card and outputted that.
Is there going to be any kind of lag in that kind of scenario?
I'm less concerned about the lag's usually not bad because, or at least not too noticeable. That I haven't noticed a lag in the past. Who knows? It may be laggier now. But the other one to think about, you were talking about this before, is looking if you're buying a new receiver.
Yeah.
Seeing if the receiver actually does capture and encoding to spit the RCA capture out onto an HDMI port.
Yeah, she said she has a home theater at home, so I'm guessing she probably has some kind of receiver.
Just check on the back of that thing just in case there's a port. If you have any other ideas for how to get your old analog video outputs, VCRs, console games, email us, Tekzilla@revision3.com. Still to come, we talked to Anand Shimpi about Microsoft's latest revision of the Xbox 360 and what's deep down inside. But while we got your attention...
If you run a business that depends on far-flung colleagues and clients across the country or across the globe, getting enough face-to-face time can be a real issue. Travel is expensive and time is short. So what do? You turn to our sponsor, GoToMeeting. With GoToMeeting, you can turn your PC into a virtual meeting room, work and meet with clients no matter where they're located. With screen sharing, you can demonstrate ideas, concepts, and collaborate in real time with attendees on presentations, documents, and spreadsheets. Plus, with voice and chat tools, you can improve communication and strengthen relationships virtually. Worried about eavesdroppers or hackers? Don't. GoToMeeting meets some of the most stringent security requirements, so you can be confident that your meetings are kept private and free of any prying eyes or ears. And it's so easy to set up. Attendees don't even need to sign up for the service to join your meeting. So cut back on the air travel, hotels, and rental cars and try GoToMeeting free for 30 days. Just visit gotomeeting.com/Tekzilla. That's gotomeeting.com/Tekzilla for a free 30-day trial.
Welcome to this week's freebie download pick. A free program that we find useful, fun, or incredibly interesting. This week, desktop slides. Adding a wallpaper to your desktop is simple and it's a fun way to customize your workspace. Everybody does it, but with so many cool images to choose from, how do you pick just one? Well, don't. Use desktop slides. Desktop slides automatically changes your desktop wallpaper at predetermined intervals from 1, 2, 3, 6, 12 hours, all the way up to once a week. You can choose to use your own images or select the live feature, and images will be culled from the wallpaperswide.com website. You can even filter images by resolution or screen ratio and select to have the images displayed sequentially or randomly. So if you have a hankering for new wallpaper to reflect the change in time all the time, you should be downloading desktop slides today. It's free, people. Just last week, Microsoft unveiled the latest revision of the Xbox 360. The iconic off-white game console has been replaced by a smaller and glossier black machine. Here to give us, well, a little deeper insight into what Microsoft did and didn't do to the new box, Anand's own Anand Shimpi. Welcome back, Anand.
Hey, how are you?
Good, man. Veronica's been obsessed about it. You recently posted a feature on Anandtech.com, the new Xbox 360. You kind of got inside and got a tight look at what's going on. What are the first things you noticed about Microsoft's latest gaming box?
The exterior stuff is pretty, I guess that's obvious, right? They went to a smaller case, a much glossier case. Obviously, it uses less power. Compared to the first Xbox, it's like half the power. Compared to the previous generation, you're looking at, somewhere between like a 10 to 20% power drop. It's not bad. And if you look at power consumption when you just have it plugged in, there's some significant savings there. So like the older Xboxes would draw about 2 watts at the outlet, at the wall, just turned off, just sitting there.
Right.
And the new one draws like almost half a watt.
So
it's not bad.
Is it as loud? Because I remember like one of the most distinctive features of the Xbox 360 was the giant cooling fans of Doom. Has the power reduction, does that mean they're basically using parts that are generating less heat inside?
Yeah, there's a lot of Moore's Law that happened in there, and we'll get to that in a second. Basically, there's now a single large fan, like a slow spinning fan inside that cools the CPU, GPU, and all that stuff, and that doesn't generate too much noise. The biggest culprit actually in the previous Xbox was the DVD drive that just made an absurd amount of noise. And they've gone to a newer revision of the drive. It's a light-on drive this time around, and they've actually put like a little rubber surround around the back of it to hopefully kind of dampen some vibrations and stuff like that. The overall result from what I measured was about a 5 decibel drop, measured about 2 or 3 inches away from the device. So it's not silent. Like you can build an HD PC that's quieter, But I would consider it to be like bearable now. It's not like a ridiculously loud machine.
So they also bundled finally the wireless adapter and an adapter in there, and a 250 gigabyte hard drive seems huge compared to what they were selling just a couple years ago.
Yeah, the first boxes came with 20 gigs, and obviously back then you couldn't install games to the drive. So now you can, and 250 gigs is nice. It's not particularly fast storage. It's still a 5400 RPM laptop drive. It's actually the old SATA 1.5 gigabit standard. Like this box is still all about kind of making sure Microsoft is as profitable as possible and not necessarily, I guess, delivering the best overall experience. But to Microsoft's credit, it is still a significant improvement over the previous generation. Well, when I took the thing apart, there are a couple things that are pretty evident now. On the old boxes, some people got really, really good at opening them up, modding them, and making it look like no one ever got into the machine. That's pretty much impossible to do now unless people get really, really clever. So there's some tabs that you have to pretty much break on both sides of the box to actually get into it. The box will still put itself, like you can still put it back together and it works fine, and it doesn't look like it's been tampered with, but Microsoft can easily tell if you've been in. And there are a couple of points during the teardown process that actually will indicate to Microsoft whether or not someone has been inside the machine. And I don't know how much of a problem that really was. Online, a lot of people were talking about doing it, but Microsoft seems to have wanted to put actual effort into fixing it. Once you get inside, Microsoft has used a lot of the kind of magic of Moore's Law to combine what used to be a discrete CPU package and a GPU plus embedded DRAM package into a single chip. And it's now covered with a heat spreader, which also avoids any potential damage issues. If you're in there mucking around trying to replace the heatsink or put something else on there, you won't run the risk of cracking the core anymore. But there's a tremendous amount of integration that's been done. Now you have a single chip with presumably one or two die on there, fabbed at what I'm hearing is 45 nanometers out at Global Foundries. And it results in a cooler box, a much more tightly integrated package. And you also see a significant reduction in idle power. So the whole box, just when you have it turned on and you're just sitting at the dashboard, it draws 70 watts compared to closer to 90 for some of the older ones, and double that for the first one.
Wow.
The putting that in perspective, though, that's actually not that efficient, right? So if you take like a Clarkdale Core i3, i5 system with a beefy video card, those will idle around 70 watts, but they'll be a lot faster. Pull out the video card, and those things are idling down at like 40 to 50 watts. So it's good for a 360. It's not as good in terms of what we have today on the PC side. But then again, it's also a lot cheaper than a full-fledged PC.
I was going to say, it would have been the Core i3 parts would have been nice, and the lower power consumption would have been great, but there would have been a lot of clock cycles sitting unused because developers don't want to develop console games that only work on the latest consoles, but the expense on that would have been huge. The integrated, you mentioned earlier that the idle power is down, basically it's not sucking as many watts when it's off. How about when you're actually full throttle gaming? Does the integrated CPU and GPU, does that give you any sort of performance benefit at that point for anybody out there, say maybe running folding cycles 24/7 or doing some serious out of control gaming?
As far as we can tell, it's everything runs at the same clock speed. It's got the same functionality. It's all about reducing cost. There's obviously a power benefit at full load, right? Like the most I could ever get this thing to draw under full load was, I think, less than 97 watts. So it's good. It draws, I would say, on average about 90 watts full load in the latest games, and that's compared to over 100 for everything else, and nearly 180 in the first generation Xbox 360.
Okay, so it's quieter. It consumes less power. I mean, do you feel like it's a serious improvement to older Xbox 360s? Because certainly I think anybody, like I said, I've got 3 friends now who are swapping out their recently replaced boxes from Red Rings of Death, and I think they're all going to go for the new boxes. Do you feel like this is a solid step up from the last generation of Xbox 360?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's the type of thing where it depends on what you do, right? If you've got a 360 that works and all you do is play games on it, $300 is a lot to spend. Even $200 is a lot to spend. Just wait till yours dies and then go out and get one of these. If you're getting a new one, obviously, I don't think there's any reason to take the discounted current ones that are on the market and go out and get one of these new ones instead. I think that makes more sense. If you are an owner of an Xbox that works totally fine, but you do use it for more of the HTPC, more of the media center kind of features, it is nice. This thing is a lot quieter, and it is a bit smaller. Then there's also the last revision of the Xbox 360 before this one, codenamed Jasper. That was supposed to be the one that couldn't red ring anymore. In terms of that failure wasn't supposed to happen anymore. And so far reports have been really good on that. So if you want a little more, I guess, guarantee that you'll be able to have a lasting console, this in theory should have none of those problems, right? It might have new ones, but it shouldn't have any of the original red ring problems that were caused by faulty solder joints or defects in the underfill on the GPU or CPU.
That's a big plus. Anand, awesome information as always. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out and be on the show. What's coming up on AnandTech.com? What should everybody at Tekzilla in the audience should be looking out for?
I've got like a ridiculously busy week. So there's all the smartphone stuff, of course. iPhone 4, iOS 4. I've been cranking on the EVO 4G from Sprint. And we're doing our typical like super deep dive performance, battery life, everything, full analysis there. A lot of interesting stuff is happening in SSDs, of course. I've got a bunch of new SSDs on the test bench. Some exciting stuff that I can't talk about yet, and even some new mobile hard drives that came out. So those are the things I'm predominantly spending most of my time with. And then I've got the usual. I've got some more CPU tests to run. We're going to be updating our live benchmarking database with some more data there. So a lot of stuff happening this week alone.
Anand, thank you so much. I personally will be scoping the website because I have to replace yet another notebook hard drive. This one didn't die, it's just gotten too small. Ladies and gentlemen, graphics cards, SSDs, CPUs, smartphones, if it's hardware, you need to visit AnandTech.com. It's the go-to site for PC enthusiasts everywhere, people. Anand, again, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you, guys.
Coming up next, Veronica Belmont goes deep inside the world of social networking. She has one application that lets you manage everything. Yes, people, stay tuned for that one. Right now, though, I want to thank Squarespace, one of our sponsors. It's a publishing system, right? It's web hosting, it's web publishing. It's for anybody looking to build a blog, a portfolio, pretty much any kind of website. It's really flexible and it's really painless. There's no coding experience required. Can you drag and drop? You can build an amazing website at squarespace.com, and you'll have the same functionality you find in some of the most highly trafficked pages on the web without having to code. Now, if you're into coding, that's okay, because you can get under the hood and manipulate code the old-fashioned way if you're that kind of gal or guy. Site Importer tool makes it super easy to move your website over from another web service, WordPress, Blogger, TypePad, Movable Type. It'll import your posts, your comments, your tags, your authors, and your media, and it even preserves your search engine optimization efforts. Your users' page ranks will update seamlessly, and the move will have no impact on the SEO status that you've been working on to get yourself those Google rankings. Now, not only is it a pretty slick website for building stuff, we can make it a cheap website. Now, you want a discount? Of course you do. You get 2 weeks for a free trial. Then they're going to ask you to step up and pay for the service if you want to keep using it. That's when you come up with the code Tekzilla when you check out. You'll score 10% off for the lifetime of your order. That's forever, people. Check it out now. Squarespace.com and use that Tekzilla code when you check out. You'll get 10% off for life.
Looks like it's time for another website we just can't get enough of. A website that we just can't stay away from because it's too useful, too funny, or just too darn irresistible. This week's pick is Parade.jp. In celebration of July 4th, which is coming up quite fast, I thought we'd show you how you can have your very own parade of Twitter users. Parade.jp is an adorable Japanese site that will be sure to brighten up your day. Here's how it works. Just enter in your Twitter username or a search term into the text field on the screen and wait for the festivities to start. You'll lead the parade as your followers march behind you, playing various instruments and tweeting out their latest thoughts. Watch and wonder as they dance and play, frolicking to the sounds of the band. Oh, what's this? A statue in my honor? You shouldn't have. If you've enjoyed your parade and want to share it with your friends, just hit the share button at the bottom to invite others to the festivities. Just visit isparade.jp to get started.
Dave's got a question I think Veronica might be able to help out with. Dave writes in, I just watched the show and noticed in the credits you have a lot of outlets for the show, like Facebook and Twitter. I wonder if there's a website or software that will let you write once and post to many social networking sites in a single go. I've seen sites that let you review many sites from one page, but other sites that take that one step further. Dave, in the United Kingdom, Veronica.
Well, Ping.fm is probably what you're looking for. There are a few services out there that are similar, but Ping has been the gold standard for posting to multiple social networks. Here's how it works. You head over to Ping.fm and create an account, of course. You choose which social networks you want to link to your Ping.fm account, like Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Google Buzz, or even your AIM status message. There's like 100 of these things. You can do Yammer, which is that company-based Twitter clone. You can do, Plurk?
Is Plurk still around?
Let's see. Is Plurk on the list? No, it's not on the list, actually, which is kind of funny, but it is still around.
Good to know.
Vox, which people don't really use that much anymore. Photo Bucket, for example. Pretty much anything you can think of that gets widely used these days. You can then group your social networks, like making Twitter and Facebook the default sites for status messages, while Flickr and Photo Bucket, for example, can be defaults for photo sharing. So if I want to upload to my Facebook page and also want to upload to Flickr at the same time, you can do that in one fell swoop. It'll add them automatically.
But what about if you want to post to Flickr and Twitter? And okay, I have an etiquette question, but I'll ask you that later.
All right. Then, of course, you create a message and choose which groups or sites you want to post them to. Ping.fm will automatically update those sites with your content. It's a great one-stop shop for posting content to the internet, but be careful. It's never fun to read repeat messages if you follow someone on multiple networks, for example, so be conscientious to not spam your friends across networks with the same info all the time. Some networks are better suited for some things than others. So you kind of have to tailor it to what you're posting.
That was my etiquette question, because I'm like, what if somebody puts the same message on like 32 social networks simultaneously, and then your aggregator gets all of them at the same time, and it's like, Bob.
It becomes a black hole.
A black hole.
You get sucked into a black hole of social networking status updates. It's not pretty. Not pretty at all. So we have a part 2 of his question as well, the difference between the UK and the USA. He says, P.S., what's the deal with mobile carriers in the US? In the UK, the 4 main carriers give you excellent coverage almost everywhere, unless you live out in the middle of nowhere. We also get lots of good value bundles and free services too. Seems like US carriers are more interested in making money than providing good coverage and services. What gives? What does give, Pat?
Well, Veronica, I got a crib sheet here because there's a whole lot of numbers here. Let me give this one for you. United States of America, 3,794,101 square miles, 309 million people. Roughly, this is the scary part, roughly 20 carriers. Welcome to the free market. National and regional, 20 carriers fighting over service. The UK, 94,000 square miles with 62 million folks and roughly 4 carriers.
Ooh.
That's the numbers I got. 4 carriers
Wow.
for the United Kingdom. The USA has 40 times the area to cover, 5 times the carrier fighting over the people. And despite the much larger population in the United States, the US has big empty areas that make for a much lower population density. UK average population density in a square mile is 659 people. In the United States, it's just 83, which means as the areas get more thinly populated, you make less money off the cell towers you post.
Right.
But if you're going to be a national carrier, you still have to have cell towers.
A lot
and all
of ground
these.
to cover if you're a national carrier in
Yes,
America.
yes,
Literally,
yes.
a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, I mean, high ground and low ground and messy ground. And the thing is, the higher density makes it much easier. The higher density and the fewer number of carriers makes it a lot easier to make more money off of every cell tower and probably every user. Think about it. The United Kingdom is equivalent in size to Michigan, but it has 6 times the people stuffed into it. I mean, I think American carriers would love, if the U.S. carriers could just go to the really populated places, I think the rates would be a lot lower.
Plus, I think they just like to price gouge.
Well, maybe the rates
I think
would
there's
be a
just
lot
that
lower.
also.
Coming up next, we're going to fire up some viewer questions, but first, Ms. Belmont.
This is one of my favorite sponsors we've probably ever had. Magic the Gathering, Duels of the Planeswalkers. The hit strategy game Magic the Gathering, Duels of the Planeswalkers is now available on your PC. Unleash an arsenal of fantastic creatures and devastating spells as you battle your way through a series of iconic Planeswalkers, diabolic puzzles, and online challengers. Duels of the Planeswalkers offers an unrivaled depth in which each game is different from the last. With 8 unique player decks, deck customization with unlocked content, extensive single-player and cooperative campaigns, and more, Duels of the Planeswalkers will offer up more depth and excitement to keep players challenged. Get Magic the Gathering Duels of the Planeswalkers for PC on Steam. Jay recently sent us an email asking, I have an ATI Radeon HD 2600 XT with 512 megabytes that came with my Dell desktop, a Vista 64-bit quad-core system with 6 gigabytes of RAM. Is this good enough for After Effects, or can I do much better? This might be a deceptively simple question, but if I upgraded from a 2600 series to a 5000 plus series, would After Effects run that much smoother? It runs really well now, but After Effects has become my main program I use for my animation, so I'd like it to work as best as possible. Jay in Chicago.
Oh boy. Look, Jay, the truth is that even with the latest versions of Adobe After Effects, it's still processor dependent. It's all about your CPU. Look, faster video card will not really improve the overall performance of the application. I say overall because with After Effects, the GPU really only impacts OpenGL functions like preview and camera zooms. Stuff like rendering, which you probably spend the majority of your time waiting for on your machine, still CPU bound. There are plugins that'll take advantage of the GPU. That'll speed up stuff like real-time effects and graphics in After Effects. You're going to pay some money for that. But I gotta say, you're probably more waiting for Adobe's push for GPU acceleration, which like finally hit for Flash on PCs and Macs. But on the production tools side of things, a lot of it's actually more on the Premiere Pro side, at least on the video tools. Obviously, Photoshop, the big money earner that I think they kind of pioneered a lot of the GPU acceleration there. The truth is, unless you have the latest version of After Effects or lots and lots of plugins that support GPU acceleration and a compatible card, you're probably better off upgrading your CPU if you want an overall improvement in After Effects performance.
So it's got to throw a little money down. Maybe a little bit of money.
Maybe, yeah. Well, a lot of times you can get a much faster CPU for the same price as a video card, so shop carefully.
All right, well, Paul emailed us this message asking, I saw the segment with Veronica hating on AT&T over the cost of the microcell. Magic Jack demoed a femtocell for VoIP at CES. Would that work on an iPhone? Paul. Yeah, sure, if it ever goes into production. There's been a few understandable legal troubles that have been going around lately, mostly that they don't actually have any deals with the carriers.
Right. Well, I don't know if that's legal trouble. It's just some marketing opportunities to be resolved.
Yes.
And
yes.
Given that all of the carriers, many of the carriers are introducing their own femtocells, and all of them seem to be trying to crush on aftermarket devices sold by third parties, like
it doesn't look likely.
Wi-Fi boosters and femtocells that don't get sold by the carriers, I'm not holding my breath.
It's too bad because we were actually pretty excited about the femtocell at CES last year.
The Magic Jack one.
Yeah, and then it just never happened. I remember you were pretty stoked on that.
Who would not be stoked
I
if
know.
they lived in my house?
And now we're stuck with the microcell.
Well, I gotta say that it's working. I got phone coverage in my house.
And you can actually do the roaming. Have you tried that yet? When you leave your house and switch over to AT&T normal coverage?
Well, I know I promised to talk about this week. I'll talk about that next week. Hold on.
All right. We'll wait for it.
I'm doing some additional testing.
We got a lot of emails of people saying thank you for telling us about this because they really wanted to be able to use their phones in their houses, and now they know there's a way. We got one of the guys like, I practically wept. I'm like, dude, I hear you. And, my mom called and the phone rang on Sunday. It was cool. But to any extent, not my favorite thing in the world, but what can you do? And that iPhone 4, you're going to come home, you're going to pick up that iPhone 4, and you're going to be like, where's my microcell? Sure would be nice if I could make calls on this thing. Finally, we got a suggestion from Joey about our computing in bed segment. If you want to use a computer in bed and have an Android device, the one app to rule them all is Gmote. Install it on your phone, install the server computer side, and you now have a media remote, a wireless touchpad, and a website pusher at your disposal. You can even set directories or an entire drive to select media to play on your computer or phone. Really, really awesome app from one bed surfer to another. That's Joey in Livonia, Michigan. And no cats required. No cats required. Well, I mean, you could still put your Gmote on the cat. That's true. I mean, you may have heat issues. With a cat? Maybe some overheating issues, but, a little hot, sweaty. The pros and cons of having a cat as an iPad/Gmote stand. What's that terrible panting noise? It's the cat. Overheating, slowly cooking from the inside. Oh, dude, I'm sorry. Thanks, Joey. Hopefully we'll find something similar out there for the iPhone, iPad, and pretty much everyone else out there. Actually, we should see if we can get in all of these sort of lap bed computer devices that we're sending. We get a lot of links on those. I would like that as well. Okay. That would be very nice. I will get the crew working on that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Revision 3 is 5. It's going to kindergarten. Revision 3 is celebrating its 5th anniversary the best way we know how. Like all good kindergartners, throwing down in our hometown of San Francisco. It's a party on June 25th. If you can make it, we'd love to see you there. And if not, you can still be part of the action by heading over to revision3.com/5-year. You can experience it all from the pleasure of your own home where the floors won't be sticky and the noise won't be so loud. And you'll still be able to see all your favorite Revision 3 stars with exclusive behind-the-scenes video streams, updates via Twitter, and more. Please help us celebrate our 5th anniversary. Join Revision 3 at revision3.com/5-year on June 25th.
I'm not going to be there.
You have a very special thing scheduled.
I have another kind of
You have
life
a previous
anniversary.
commitment.
Yeah, it's Ryan's birthday, so we're out of town. Sorry, guys. Have fun for me. Throw a few back drink-wise for me. I'll appreciate it.
back.
Take lots of pictures.
You're not going to join in on the Twitter and the boards and the things?
I don't think Ryan would like that very much if we were having a nice birthday dinner for him and I was sitting there watching the Revision 3 5-year anniversary live stream. Just a hunch.
Just a hunch.
Just a hunch.
We'll do it after dinner. For everybody watching, we love your questions, so email us, Tekzilla at revision3.com. Tech help, product reviews, how-tos. You ask us, we'll get them to you. But we need your emails, folks. You drive the show. You own the show. Don't be shy. Send those suggestions. Send those questions into Tekzilla at revision3.com.
Even better, send us in a video question. Think of all the fun you can have and the admiration of all your friends and family when they see your mug on our show. Just keep it to 15 seconds, upload it to YouTube, and send us a link in an email with video question in the subject line. And as always, you can visit our forums at revision3.com/forum. Share your thoughts, ideas, or comments with other fans of the show. Thank you guys so much for watching.
I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
Till next time, you've been watching Tekzilla. Teleprompter me. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-ta-ta-ta-ta.
What do you want me to do, Roger? Just tell me. I'm your monkey.
Look, the truth is, unless you have the latest version of After Effects in 3,